This is part 38 of Angular 6 tutorial. In this video, we'll discuss implementing custom preloading strategy. To control when a lazy loaded module is downloaded onto the client machine, we use this preloading strategy property. We discussed the significance of this property in detail in our previous video. Now let's assume in our project we've got two modules, employee module and admin module. Both these modules are configured to be lazy loaded. Now if we set preloading strategy property to no preloading, then none of these two modules will be downloaded in the background. On the other hand, if we set preloading strategy property to preload all modules, then both the modules will be downloaded in the background. So the important point to keep in mind is with these two built-in preloading strategy option values, we can either preload all the lazy loaded modules in the background or none of them. But what if we want to preload some of the lazy loaded modules but not the others? For example, in our case, we want to preload the employee module but not the admin module. Well, that's exactly when we implement a custom preloading strategy. We implement custom preloading strategy as a service. So let's use Angular CLI and generate a service. Here is the command: ng for Angular CLI itself, g for generate, s for service, and let's name our service custom preloading. There we go. Our service is generated, and if we take a look at our project, here is that generated file. We are implementing a custom preloading strategy. To make that happen, this service class needs to implement the Angular's built-in preloading strategy abstract class. Notice when I press tab, the preloading strategy type is automatically imported from the Angular router package. Now if we take a look at the definition of this preloading strategy type, notice it is an abstract class and it has got this abstract method preload for which we need to provide implementation. Now if we take a look at our service class, notice we have got a red squiggly. So if I click on it and then press Ctrl dot, we get the option to implement preloading strategy. Notice VS Code says preloading strategy as an interface, but we know it's an abstract class. Now when I select this option, notice the preload method signature is incorrectly stubbed out. So let's copy the signature of the method from here and then provide the implementation. At the moment, we don't have this route type imported. So first let's import that. And we also don't have the observable. Let's import that as well. And then format this code so we don't have all those red squigglies. Notice this method has got two parameters. The first parameter is called route and it is of type route. This parameter provides us access to the current route. And the second parameter is called fn. As the name implies, it's a function. Now the important point to keep in mind is this is the function that preloads a given module. To specify if we want a lazy loaded module to be preloaded or not, we're going to include a setting on the route of that lazy loaded module. In our case, the lazy loaded module is employee module and the route for that is present in this file app-routing.module.ts. Here is the route for our employee module. Notice within the route object here, when I press Control space, I see data property. Using this data property, I can pass any arbitrary data to this route, and the value for this is an object. Within this object, include any data that you want to pass to this employee's route. I'm going to include a custom property here. I'm going to name it preload. You can name it anything you want. And the value for this is going to be true because we want the employee module to be preloaded. If you do not want it to be preloaded, then set this property value to false. In our case, we want it to be preloaded, so let's set it to true. So the important point to keep in mind is we're going to use this preload property to determine if we want a given lazy loaded module to be preloaded or not. So within our custom preloading service implementation, first check if the given route has got the data property. If the data property exists, check if it has got preload property and if that property value is true. If both these conditions are true, then that means we want to preload the module. For that, all we need to do is return this function which preloads the module. Notice the return type of this method. It is observable of any, which matches with the return type of this preload method. So if both these conditions are true, then that means we want to preload the module, so we return this function which preloads the module. If any one of these two conditions is false, then it's going to come to the else block, and we want to return here an observable of null to indicate that we do not want the module to be preloaded. To return an observable of null, we use the off method. At this point, all that is left to do is specify this service as our custom preloading strategy. So within our app routing module, instead of using the Angular's built-in preload all modules type, we're going to use this service as the value for this preloading strategy property. We also need to import this service. At this point, let's save all our changes and take a quick look at the browser. Notice at the moment we are on the home route. Let's clear everything under the network tab and reload our home route. Notice our employee module is preloaded in the background because we have set the preload property to true. Now let's clear what we have under the network tab and navigate to a route in our employee module. Notice the only request that we see here is this XML HTTP request to retrieve the list of these 3 employees. The employee module is not loaded because it's already preloaded. Now let's change the value of this property to false. With this change, our employee module should not be preloaded in the background. Let's navigate back to the home route, clear everything under the network tab, and reload our home route. Notice now the employee module is not preloaded. Let's clear the network tab again and navigate to the employees route in our employee module. Notice at this point the employee module is loaded on demand. So 3 simple steps to implement a custom preloading strategy in Angular. First, create a service, and that service should implement the Angular's built-in preloading strategy abstract class, and then provide the implementation for the abstract method preload. The second step is to import our custom preloading service and set it as the preloading strategy. Our final step is to modify all the lazy loaded routes to include this preload property. If you want a given lazy loaded module to be preloaded, then set this property to true, otherwise false. That's it in this video. Thank you for watching and have a great day.